Okay, today we're gonna do steps, this would be steps 5 and 6. I know the directions don't really number them in steps anymore the way they do with when you're building a model. So I'm just gonna call it steps 5 and 6. And that would be installing the engine mount into the back of the rocket and doing the shock cord mount, which requires you to cut out this piece, which was next to the fin marking tube thing that we cut out in the other directions. So we're gonna cut this out, and we're gonna do that, and we're gonna glue the engine mount in. And just give me a second to cut that out. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've cut this out, and we wanna fold this like this on these dotted lines so that's ready to go. And we're gonna need the rubber band that's in the package with your parachute. So we'll need to get that out, and we'll need our engine mount that we did in steps 1 and 2. And we'll need our rocket that has all the fins glued on. Now, since this rocket has all the fins glued on, we did this yesterday, and I used a tiny amount of glue, but you can see like they're on there pretty good. But what we can do is we can take some glue and we can just add a little bit of glue right in there in these edges just to reinforce it so that they're not going anywhere. And a little bit more on the launch tube. Just be very careful not to get any glue inside that launch tube, because then the launch rod won't go through it, and then you won't be able to launch the rocket. So you just want to be very careful not to get any glue inside that. Just a little reinforcing layer, and that'll be good to go. I've actually seen these come down in the engines, not deploy the parachute because the nose cone got stuck in for some reason, and embed into the ground and slam into the ground, and they don't break. That's pretty strong like that. If you're really concerned about it, when that's dry tomorrow, you could add another layer if you wanted to. Now, the directions say to use a piece of balsa wood from the fins that you cut out and use, or a stick, and use that to apply glue inside, like 1.5 inches up. You really don't have to do that. Here's how I do it. I'm just gonna take the back of the rocket, I'm gonna take the glue, and I'm just gonna put a bead of glue in there and spin the rocket around while I'm doing it. So you can see I've got like a layer of glue in there. And then when I slide this in there, it's just gonna smear that glue up in there, and it'll stick. And I try and line the engine hook up with the launch lug, just so when it's on the launch rod on launch day, it's just a little easier to manage. And we're gonna push that in right up to where that line was that we drew, that 3/8 inch line. And we'll just let that dry. And that just pushed all that glue around in there, and that'll be stuck in there. And then we'll just set that aside and let that dry. For the shock cord mount, what we wanna do is we wanna glue the rubber band. The rubber band is what's gonna attach the nose cone to the rocket. And attaching the rubber band to the nose cone is real easy. We just tie it on there and it's good to go. But we have to glue it inside the rocket body. And how you're gonna glue rubber onto cardboard, the Elmer's glue doesn't really glue to rubber very well, and it'll just pop out. So the trick to doing that, let me just cut this open a little bit better, is we're just gonna get this kind of pinched up in this paper. So we're gonna put some glue on this paper, and we're gonna lay the rubber band across these numbers here. We're gonna lay it across numbers 2 and 3, and we'll put some glue in here, and then we'll just fold that over like that, and then we'll fold it in half again. And now that rubber band is folded inside the paper, and when that's dried up and solid, that'll be stuck in there, and then the paper part gets glued inside the rocket. So what we wanna do is we wanna lay a little glue in here. Just a bead of glue like that. And we're gonna lay that across the 2 and the 3. And we're gonna fold that 1 over the 2. And then we're gonna fold the 2 over the 3, and that's gonna fold the rubber band in half. And then we're just gonna squeeze the glue out. And I'm just gonna press it together. And then we're gonna let that dry for a good half hour. Just let that dry like that, and then that rubber band is gonna be stuck in there. Now, that's all you do in those steps. And really, after that's dried, all we gotta do is glue that inside the rocket, tie it up, and it's good to go. But there are a couple things you can do. Here's a fun little thing you can do. The parachute. Let's get the parachute out. Parachute's a pretty good size. Here's the problem. The rocket is very, very light. So if it's a little windy out, and I've had this happen to me before on my own rockets that I've launched, if it's a little windy out and you send your rocket up 200-300 feet, maybe 600 feet if you put a different engine in it, the winds are different up off the ground, and the parachute deploys and your rocket just gets blown away. And as I said, these can come down without the parachute, and they're fine because they're very light and they don't hit the ground that hard. So you don't need a full parachute in your rocket. So what you can do is you can take your parachute, get the strings out so they're all hanging down, and you could fold your parachute in half like this. All right, you fold it in half again into like a pizza shape, and you can just keep folding it until it's smaller and smaller and smaller like this. And you can see there's a dotted line here. You can just cut that dotted line, and that'll put a circle, a hole in the middle of your parachute, and that'll let your rocket come down a little bit faster. You can actually go bigger than that. You can make it a little bit bigger if you want to, but that's a pretty good one. That'll let the rocket fall a little bit faster and help prevent it from getting blown away. Or if you wanted to, you can do it in half like this and cut out like a heart shape and then open it up. Or maybe you can draw like half a Mickey Mouse ear thing and cut that out. Then you'd have a Mickey Mouse ear opening in your parachute. You can do all kinds of cool things. Maybe at the end of this video, I'll put a picture up of another one I'll do just to see what it looks like. Anyway, so we're gonna let that all dry and then we'll assemble it. That'll be the last step.